Heading into the 2023-24 NFL season, I had made a video asserting and laying out why the Miami Dolphins will disappoint you this season. The Dolphins were very strong off-season favorites as a Super Bowl contender. And many people disagreed with me that I think the Dolphins were overrated. They very strongly disagreed with me, as a matter of fact.
Lots of incorrect info in this one. You should do more homework, bro.
Glad. And what's your name again? Disappoint? You should have picked on the Panthers, Patriots, or Broncos. Not the best offense in the National Football League. What kind of drugs is this guy on, Mr. Negative? Ha ha ha. You couldn't be more wrong.
You are very, very wrong.
This did not age well, not at all.
Anyone with unicorn in their brand can't be right very often.
Ha 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 ha! You're lucky you have 38 followers and you won't grow with losing predictions like this. Dolphins will be 11-3 over the next 5 games, and Tua will be MVP. So you pretty disappoint right now.
I think Brandon should buy a team and show us what a genius he really is and draft those unicorns and win a Super Bowl. He must have a crystal ball to go along with his unicorns. What a genius.
After a season where the Dolphins lost every single game against a winning team, other than one anomaly against the Dallas Cowboys where the boys just played their worst game, and then this team got pantsed on national television against the Kadarius Toney Chiefs. So I'm pretty excited to do a retrospective on my analysis to see how it all played out. My first main point about why the Dolphins would disappoint is their depth on defense. Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey are fantastic corners, but they are aged and injured veterans. And this team lost key depth pieces this offseason like Eric Rowe and Byron Jones. I felt that they really ignored the need to replace that solid depth. Jalen Ramsey was injured and questionable going into this playoff game, so he may have been slowed down a bit, but he did play. However, Xavier Howard missed the playoff game, in addition to missing a few regular season games with his groin and leg injuries. And with Xavier Howard missing, the secondary against the Chiefs gets absolutely torched.
Dolphins can't bring him down.
The Chiefs do have a ton of drops on open catches, but they still allow rookie Rashee Rice a 130-yard game, and Mahomes picks up 280 yards. And if not for a handful of drops, Mahomes would have easily gone over 300. That's all to say, the secondary got torched due to a lack of depth in a season where they should have known they would have needed that preparation behind Howard and Ramsey.
Here comes the blitz. Mahomes throws in the middle. Rice coming. Rashee Rice taking off. Rice down the side.
I also asserted that one injury to this thin front seven would start to cause disaster for this team due to all the offseason departures of significant role players like Melvin Ingram, Landon Roberts, and Trey Flowers. So when the Dolphins lost star defensive end Jalen Phillips to injury, this was starting to look like a concern. But when this team lost star edge rusher Bradley Chubb because they left him in a 30-point blowout to the Ravens, the situation started to get really disastrous. This team really messed up not taking out their star in a 30-point blowout. So this front seven really kind of gets destroyed against the Chiefs. They're not really able to generate enough pressure on Mahomes, and they are not able to stop the run game at all against Pacheco, as the Chiefs' run game was able to get Pacheco 90 yards and a touchdown in this game. My next point was that Tua would probably get hurt this year because this offensive line had really poor PFF grades and projected to be very poor this season. But I want to give a lot of credit to this offense. McDaniels focused on play calls where Tua could get the ball out of his hands immediately upon catching the snap, and that play calling really helped to cover up these offensive line issues. However, when this line was really counted on to keep a play alive for longer than average on a deep ball attempt, I think they really did start to allow the amount of pressure we expected going into the year, and they couldn't give this offense the time they needed on longer developing route combinations. And when you have superstars, super speedsters like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, the more time you can give them downfield to cook, the better. So, the Dolphins were unable to pass deep well against good defenses. So, they let that make them very predictable by overusing short screens and short throws, which they were usually very good at when they had the deep ball as an option. This great Chiefs defense realized the Finns would be unsuccessful throwing deep, so they sat on the short screen game and they just obliterated receivers as the ball hit their hands on many, many occasions in this game. Tua is the definition of a game manager. I know some are trying to disprove that narrative, but he is just the epitome of a quarterback who looks great against bad teams, but he looks genuinely bad when he goes against good and great defenses. So that offensive line and quarterback are going to combine to look fantastic against poor competition, but look bad against great competition. And really, that's just a recipe for failure in the playoffs and against good teams, just like we saw all this year. Tua had an awesome regular season, but in my opinion, he really just dominated bad teams, and as we saw in this playoff game, when he's playing under pressure from a good defense, he's just inaccurate. Certainly, to some degree, playing in Kansas City in this really cold game, this like negative 25 real feel, it definitely gives Kansas City an advantage. But I really don't think it made that big of a difference. This game was a blowout, the weather would not have changed that, right? I think this game showcases the exact same flaws that this Dolphins team had last year and that we've seen in every game this season. A lack of depth in the secondary and front seven for an often injured group of starters, an offensive line that cannot assert themselves against good or great defenses, and a quarterback consistently coming up short against competent defenses, all doomed this year's Miami Dolphins squad. And I just feel like it was kind of predictable going into the year that this was going to be the result at one point or another.
High and intercepted. It's Mike Edwards in the back, coming up with the pick.